Hey guys, Coach Ben here, bigbenchas.com. Today I wanted to do a video for you regarding bands and chains in the bench press, and which I prefer to use personally. Alright, now when talking bands and chains, typically they're used for accommodating resistance during speed work workouts. And that being what happens with the chains and bands is during the bottom of the press when you're at the chest, that band tension or that chain weight is deloading off the bar, and as you press up, you're adding weight to the bar by the band tension and the chain weight. Alright, and that's been shown to increase force development, which is what you're after with these speed workouts, moving the bar quickly, because it forces you to really move the bar quickly throughout the whole range of motion, because you're going to need that extra press speed to break through that sticking point where the bands and the chains start to load the bar. Alright, so that's what they're typically used for. Now, which do I prefer to use during bench pressing? That would be the bands. Now, a few reasons being is the bench press really isn't a large range of motion such as the squat or the deadlift, right? So, especially a short arm bencher such as myself, I'm not moving that bar very far. So the chain links aren't really going anywhere. I may be moving 2 or 3, alright? It's not giving me a big sway in tension either way. So I'm pretty much using one weight throughout the whole motion, alright? So I'm not really getting anything out of using the chains via the bands. Because with the bands, I can kind of rig them differently. I can use different bands to kind of give me that difference in tension. Alright, so I can go through a short range of motion and still add a lot of tension to the bar by adding more bands, using different bands and whatnot. Alright, so that's why I prefer to use the bands during the bench press. Personally, that's the biggest reason. It's just because it's not a large range of motion and you're really not moving chain links very far. Alright, the other reason being it's just easier to set up, at least for me. Unless you have access to those different chain loading devices, it's really hard to kind of add chains to the bar and have them move appropriately. Alright, I can just easily throw down dumbbells. I can put the bands right around them. Bands are easy to access. That brings me to the next point. It's just availability and affordability. Elite FTS has band sales all the time. Bands are very cheap to get. Alright, via chains or versus chains, a little more expensive to get your hands on. Alright, I don't really know the price on chains. It's got to be somewhere between 40-60 bucks. Especially if you're going to buy more, it could be more than that. It can get really pricey versus getting bands. You can get all the bands you need for $40. Alright, so just that affordability, availability, and just easier setup. At least I think so. And then my last point is just it's a different feel. Alright, just the way how chains deload on the ground. It's a little more rickety sometimes, especially when benching. You don't really notice as much squat and deadlift, but you kind of feel the difference when you're using band tension versus chain weight on the bench press. At least I noticed that. The band tension is a little more smoother, and you can really get that to kick in at the end. Alright, it's very hard to get that chain weight to kick in hard at the end, right when you need that final lockout push. And I find with the bands, especially since that's a weak point of mine right now, is getting that final push to lockout. I can rig those bands so that it's really tough to get that lockout. And it really forces you to keep mindful of punching through the bar at the end. Alright? So that's personally why I prefer to use bands. I think it's just easier for most lifters. Maybe someone with a large range of motion can get away with using chains. I just find bands to be much more valuable because the bench really isn't that large of a range of motion. Alright, but play around with both of them for yourself. Decide which ones you like the most. Maybe you have chains available, you don't have bands available. They both gonna work, alright? But that's my take on the subject. I go bands every time. Alright, Coach Ben here, bigbenchas.com. Shoot me an email at coachben@bigbenchas.com if you're interested in getting some personal coaching. And make sure you're checking out the website, bigbenchas.com. I'll see you next video.